I was scrolling through Netflix and came across the Christmas and New Year section. I saw the preview of the movie Castle for Christmas and decided that this movie would have about the same vibe as Princess for Christmas. Well, you can understand, because the names are similar, also castle and all that stuff. The film tells the story of a successful writer and author of popular novels for women, Sophie Brown. She failed and decided to take a vacation in order to discharge herself and finally visit the castle, which she had wanted to see for a long time. Because her father visited here in his young years and left Sophie with a photo and a whole bunch of stories to boot. The expression of the actress is certainly off scale, and this is not an advantage. In some places it looks cringe. Sophie comes to Scotland and we're immediately poured with a lot of accent-related humor, but it is what it is. American films do that a lot. The landscapes of Scotland are certainly amazing. Everything looks cozy, beautiful, and old. I really like it. Sophie meets a stranger, falls into his arms, and it is not at all obvious that this is the only handsome man of her age in the area. The main character immediately finds like-minded people from the knitting club, who accepts her with pleasure and begin to make friends. So far, it's quite a typical plot for such a romantic world. Plus, Sophie recently divorced her husband and is clearly in midlife or post-middle age crisis. She rides a bike, enjoys nature, and stops by the castle. Guided tours are conducted in the castle, which are clearly unsuccessful. And of course, an interesting, hard-working man also hangs around there. Naturally, he happily conducts an excursion to our heroine and tells in detail about the history of Dunbar Castle and complains during the campaign that no one in town stops here for a long time. The man says that the castle belongs to some aristocrat, and of course we understand who this aristocrat really is. Now she, a successful, wealthy New York writer, would fall in love with a commoner? I don't think so. The lovey-doveys have a skirmish and Sophie comes back to her friends in the pub. They get to know each other better, tell life stories and teach Sophie to knit. Sophie says that her father lived in the town for a long time and the characters react as if he was someone very unusual, even a nobleman. As for me, the reaction for such cases is exaggerated. In the next scene, we, about a surprise, learn that the beautiful stranger is the owner of the castle, Miles Dunbar. He begins to behave like a jerk, although he himself decided to sell the castle. Realizing that the castle could go over to the bank, the Duke bowed to the American woman. They act like teenagers, but end up agreeing on a deposit, and Sophie moving in with Miles immediately. Miles continues to behave like an arrogant and not very pleasant person. The plot can be understood very quickly and easily and does not create any expectations for unusual twists or turns. Sophie settles in the castle with the intention of staying perhaps forever. This conflict actually doesn't worth a penny. The heroes find themselves in a bit ridiculous situations, but to be honest, these situations are a bit out of place for the age of the main characters. I would understand if teenagers behaved this way. The actors play well, but the dog is the best. The knitting club comes to help Sophie in arranging her room. While the heroine has to write a new book, she wanders around the town for 3 months and has fun. She does services to local residents, for which they begin to love her even more. The girls at the knitting club tell Sophie about Miles' heartbreaking and tear-shattering story. After all, he's so good and kind, so sympathetic. Well, everything is according to the classics of the genre. Further, there's a scene of convergence of characters and stories from the life of the Dukes. The landscapes are still very beautiful and incredibly pleasant to look at. Then the authors add the atmosphere of the holiday and culture of Scotland, and then they make an awkward middle scene, Sophie helps the guys with doing business in the castle conducts excursions. The film tries to convince me that everyone in this world knows and reads Sophie Brown's books. That is weird. Miles continues to act like a mischievous person, if not worse. Despite this, Sophie and the club decide to spend Christmas in Dunbar and invite the whole city. Sophie calls her daughter to come to celebrate Christmas together, but she refuses in favor of her father's wedding. Christmas is near and Sophie finds an all-Scottish dress. Miles gives into feelings and everything seems to be fine between the characters. At this time, a strange-looking couple comes to the hotel and attention is so concentrated on them that I thought that it was Sophie's ex-husband with his fiancée. After all, at the beginning of the film, it was said that a wedding is planned in the castle for Christmas. That's how the turn would be, right? The conflict is not contrived like the mood swings of an elderly duke, but a real whirlpool of feelings. But no, it was just an unsuccessful attempt to show that the town has become more popular with tourists. Sophie and Miles are enjoying a lovely Christmas morning, and he has another girly fit. Sophie shows pride and leaves. She wants to go home, but good friends. And here's the question, whose friends are they, Miles's or Sophie's? If they force her to stay with an emotionally unstable person for their own purposes, for example, that the bank does not buy the castle or something else. Sophie is left alone for Christmas. But as expected, a clumsy duke on a white horse breaks into her hotel at night. They go together to celebrate Christmas. Sophie's daughter arrives and everyone is happy with the holiday. Hooray! In fact, for a one-time viewing, this film is not bad. If you're getting ready for the holiday and you want to turn on something in the background for the atmosphere, this will do. But in all seriousness, there's simply no point in watching and delving into it. It's superficial and simple. If you want a love story for Christmas, there are many good films that deserve more attention. And so, the film has its own atmosphere. It's quite cozy in a very beautiful location. I will give it 6 out of 10 and put it on a shelf for one-day films. Watch only good movies, subscribe to the channel, and have happy holidays.